Hi Brian, how are you?
Well, yourself.
So, taking us back to the 2007 Rugby World Cup, just take us through what was going through your mind when you scored that try against England and how did it feel for you?
2004, you're talking about my first test. So I didn't score in 2007 against England. JP Peterson, John Smith, Freddie Fred. I didn't score in 2007. 2004 was my first test match. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, cool. I think as a player, there's so many that dream and wish of trying to play for the Springboks. I'll never forget Eugene Eloff moved me from scrum half to centre, and that just played an extremely impactful differentiator in being noticed. I had a really good run and the Lions got noticed by Jake White while I played in the S under 21 team that went to the Rugby World Cup in Scotland in 2004, and Jake believed or saw something in me that he felt I could contribute. It was a part of the Tri Nations team that won in 2004, but it was holding my blazer over my arm because I didn't get to play, and then went to that end of year tour after a very successful Currie Cup season, and didn't play the first game against Wales. Wasn't selected to play Ireland, where our Grand Slam tour got very quickly derailed by a incredibly sneaky Ronan O'Gara quick tap penalty that should have never been. Then I got to sit on the bench against England on the 20th of November 2004, and there's some moments that you remember for the rest of your life, and I think getting to represent your country for the very first time was without a doubt my most proudest moment. Getting to score a try with my first touch of the ball in international rugby. I've probably got to acknowledge and thank John de Villiers for getting injured so that I could come on, and then acknowledge Jaco van der Westhuizen for taking that gap and making me score. And the moment went by so fast because we were behind in the scoreboard and you just wanted to continue contributing. But it was also that moment that made me realize that I don't just want to do this once. I want to do it twice, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times. Try to reach a milestone that very few had ever achieved. And getting to that point took a lot of hard work, but arriving at that point reignited a fire to want to try to do it for as long as possible.
And would you say Jake White supporting you is the one part that fueled you and actually put you in alignment with the type of player that you grew out to be?
I owe a lot to Jake, but I don't think there's one coach I'd be able to single out. Tati Faber, who selected me for the first time ever in the under 14 G side at King Edwards. Some coaches that dropped me when I wanted to play for higher honours at school. Hugo van As, Wimpy Vermeulen, Ian McDonald. I remember all these coaches as a youngster that was sort of forming my career. Peter de Villiers was my S under 21 coach when we went to the World Cup in Scotland in 2004. And then Jake selected me when I had never even played Super Rugby before. But Peter de Villiers selecting me when 43,000 South Africans booed me off the field at Bloemfontein Stadium in 2010, when he probably could have easily dropped me, I would have never played 100 test matches for the country. So to single out one coach, I don't think is wrong, because I tell everyone the best coach I played under was the coach that selected me. Because as an individual, you put yourself in a position to be selected, but you don't select yourself. So you need to be disciplined. You need to sacrifice. You need to know how to work hard. You need to persevere and be resilient. But those that select you allow you to go out there and showcase your skill set to the world. And as grateful as I am for Jake for selecting me, before I played Super Rugby, I think I put myself in a position to be selected. But Jake selecting me was no different than Eugene Eloff, moving from scrum half to centre. Was no different from Peter de Villiers supporting me when no one else had to. No different from Heineke Meyer, who believed in me in 2012 and brought me back into the squad. So, I can't single out one coach, because each and every coach played a journey in not only the player I became, but the person I developed into.
And talking about you placing yourself in the right position for you to be sport, what would you say to that young player who's also on the edge and they want to be recognized? What advice would you give to them?
The advice I give to youngsters is put yourself in a position to try be selected. Unfortunately, not everyone gets the opportunity. Not everyone goes to great rugby playing schools. Not everyone potentially has the financial resources to try and make sport, not just rugby, whether it be football, cricket, athletics, swimming, whatever that might be. Not everyone has the resources to be able to do that. But what I love about professional sport is that each and every athlete's journey to success is unique. And yes, there's commonalities, but every story has there's some, Tiger Woods was 2 years old when his dad put a golf club in his hand. Roger Federer was 2.5 when he got a tennis racket put in his hand. I only started playing rugby when I was 14. And my first ever game was for the under 14 G side. So if I could make it, Makazole Mapimpi, walked 10 kilometers to school in the morning, 10 kilometers to school, back home from school in the afternoon, 5 days of the week for 5 years of his life. He became the first Springbok rugby player to score a try in a Rugby World Cup final. And if we look at that, and if we look at how each journey is unique, I think that saying of shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you're going to land amongst the stars. I think there's a skill set that sport allows you to develop that stands you in good stead for life in general. And don't let anyone dismay your dreams. Don't let anyone break you, because only you understand the hardships, the effort you go through, and the realization that unfortunately not everyone is going to make it. But I really do believe the skills that sport teaches you will in some way or form allow you to make a success of your life, no matter what avenue you go down.
Bryan, as a former great Springbok wing, how delighted are you with the current crop of wings that the Springboks have, and what do you think of them?
Firstly, I think one's got to really reflect on the squad that Rassie's been able to develop over the course of the last 7 years when he took over the reins in 2018. You look at the depth that we have, you look at the platform that he's given to players to go and excel. I think the manner in which he's been able to continually keep an incredible group of experience and mix it with youth and exuberance, and see how those youth and exuberance have come to the fore and absolutely grab the opportunities with both hands. Edel van der Merwe could become the first Springbok rugby player to score tries in every of his first 4 test matches. And I tell people records are there to be broken. And if I look at what Cheslin is doing, look at what Kurtley Arendse is doing, look at what Makazole Mapimpi is doing, and I look at how they've been given that platform to go showcase their talent and individualism is absolutely phenomenal. Both Cheslin, Kurtley, and even Edel, the Power Rangers with their scrum caps, are redefining how people view wing play, and that is phenomenal. And as a Springbok fan that I am now, yes, I played the game, but I'm very much like any Springbok supporter in the country. I think it's absolutely brilliant to see how those that have been given the opportunity in the Springbok team are absolutely going out there and performing, and long may that continue, long may records be broken, because as individuals, if you contribute in any way or form on the field, at the end of the day the team becomes successful. And it is phenomenal to see this young crop of talent just going out there and shining their light to the world.
Edel van der Merwe has kind of come a little bit from left field, Springbok from the Lions like you were. What do you like about him?
Ken, firstly, I'm going to disagree. I don't think he's come from left field.
Yeah.
I think he's been playing incredible rugby over the last 6 or 7 years. He's really grafted hard, worked hard. I think he's a player who worked extremely hard on the field, puts himself in a position to surprise the opposition. And I don't think it's a surprise that his current success rate is where it is. I think his off the mark speed is great. I think his vision on the field to pop up in places where the opposition least expect him. His power to weight ratio is probably up there with Cheslin, and he is a guy who wears his arm, his heart on his sleeve, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And like I say, he's got a phenomenal opportunity, and you sometimes hate being told these things ahead of a game, but he's got an opportunity to create history, which I know he'll be chomping at the bit to do this coming weekend.
Bryan, I'm glad you brought up the wings, because would it be fair to say that there's the build of modern day wing? Like, Edel, Cheslin, probably they're not massive guys. You were probably bigger in your day when you prime. Has there been an evolution of the wing? Why are the South African wings doing so well? and they technically, I don't want to. I'm not being, I'm not being funny or trying to be flippant, but they would be considered smaller than what their opponents would be. Is there a reason in your?
So I think they're breaking stigma, which is absolutely brilliant. I think one of the biggest stats that Rassie looks at is your battle stats. It's the work rate, it's the effort, it's the continual effort, it's the doing the things that people don't see. And firstly, they're probably off the field physically training exceptionally hard, potentially harder than your typical winger. But if you look at someone like Gio Aplon, that was just as phenomenal. Potentially didn't get the opportunity because he was in a time period where the likes of myself, JP, Luaz, and Volvo were there. But Gio was just as power to weight ratio conscious as what this current generation of players is. And I do think breaking the stigma, and you can only really be counted when you play the game. And if you look at how these players play the game, you can't leave them out. And the opportunities that they get, they absolutely smash it out the park. And it's not breaking stereotypes, because I think Rassie knew what he's getting in all these players. They've been performing week in, week out, month in, month out, while playing. Cheslin went to the Rio Olympics in 2016 and won a bronze, right? So it's just sometimes you're dispelling the ideology that people have. Jonah Lomu was an absolute freak. Wendell Saylor, Lottie Takiri, Ben Cohen's of the world were absolutely freaks. But I think it's all about what you're doing on the field and the impact that you're making. And these players really put a foot wrong. And the manner in which they physically step up to the plate. I mean, both Cheslin and Kurt Lee and even Edwell are bouncing props. And that power to weight ratio takes a lot of hard work and effort. And I do believe that comes with the necessary support from coaches who believe in you and back you. And what we've been able to see from them over this course of the last 7 years is pretty special.
Candid Moody, he was on the wing, but moved him now more to an outside centre. Where do you prefer to see him in the future? He's still a young man.
I think Cannon's been doing really well as a 13. I think he's got a lot of potential as a wing. Scoring a try against Australia in your first test, catching a high ball and running 30 meters untouched was pretty special. He's developing. I think he's got an incredible skill set. He's got such sleight of hand, has the ability to speed off the mark that surprises defenses. He might not be the most muscular person, but holds his own physically, which is brilliant. I don't know Kanan well enough to say where I'd like to see him, but what I have seen is that no matter what position you put him in, he's an absolute workhorse. He's not scared to get physical. He's incredible under the high ball, and he's got the vision to be either on the wing, at centre, fullback maybe. So hopefully he'll discover his own form. I'm really hoping he doesn't become a jack of all trades, because I think at some point you need to become a master of one, and Kanan has showed that he can master many positions on the field at the minute, and it will definitely be up to him. But what an exciting player he is. At such a young age to be playing the brand of rugby he's playing. Long may that continue.
Bryan, what do you make of?
From your perspective, just what do you make of the Rugby Championship, and where do you think these two tests against Australia could be won and lost, based on assuming you would have watched the Wallabies?
Seeing how the Wallabies went against the Lions, we definitely saw there was a continual improvement game by game. I think the big players that they brought in, Alatoa, Will Skelton, Rob Valentini, Joseph Suyali, they're pretty big players, and that ability to win the contact or the physicality on the field definitely puts you in a position. And seeing that the Lions series at the end, there was only a 1 point difference, a potential try scoring opportunity that decided that series. But then reflecting on where the Springbok group is, Rassie threw his net wide in the test earlier in July, but we've really seen a focus on what he believes is his strongest 15 to play. And the benefit of playing in South Africa at altitude against Australia, where I last think they won in 1960 odd, definitely puts the Springboks in a position of power. But Joe Smith has been doing something incredible with the Wallaby side over the last 2 years, and I know that Russ and the team won't go into these games thinking it's gonna be a walkover. But also, if we get it right with the group of players we got, there could be a pretty enjoyable game up at the Highveld. So there is this week where it's probably going to be dry in comparison to potentially being wet in Cape Town, and the Wallabies maybe are going to target Cape Town more than they target this game. But I think it's going to be a phenomenal rugby championship, and I'm super excited to see where the Springbok team goes.
All right, guys. Just sorry,
I've always got. Just what do you make of